Hey everyone, this is James from TDB, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about benchmark tea, what it is, how it's useful. So I did recently write an article up on tdb.org. Go ahead, check that out on benchmark tea, and covering a lot of the similar stuff for this. This is kind of a different format, so just going to approach it from a slightly different angle, but covering a lot of that same material that's on the blog. But yeah, check out the blog. It's a way for me to kind of get a lot of the thoughts that maybe aren't like 100% aligned with kind of this more vlog style video YouTube format onto the internet and yeah, so just go ahead and check it out. So what is a benchmark tea? Well, it's basically a tea that you're using as a benchmark to measure other things against it. So I'd say the base case for a benchmark tea is like as a tool to evaluate. For instance, one of the things I like to do on the blogs, or when I'm just trying to learn about a certain category or subcategory of tea, is to kind of get your baselines satisfied. So that way you have something to really anchor your tastings and whatnot. So for instance, when I did a Shagwan report recently on the blog, where I drank through something like 40 different Shagwans, I had a tea that I've had a number of times. I've almost already finished the cake in the last few years, and that is the 2005 Shagwan Iron Cake 8653. That was from the January batch. I bought it from Taobao probably 5 years ago or so. I have about 5 of these cakes, something like that. And to be honest, I do sort of want even more than it, just because I am going through it at a pace where I will run out at some point. So what is special about this tea? Well, this tea is a Shagwan, and it's a very representative Shagwan. So it has a lot of the Shagwan characteristics of it, and it's also, in my opinion, a decently above average Shagwan. So it's a good way for me to measure tea and just think about tea mentally in my head. So if I were to have, like, I don't know, a 2004 Shagwan Jaji Iron Cake or whatever, in my head, I would be trying to compare this with the Iron Cake if I was trying to evaluate the tea. And I'd be like, okay, do I think this is better than the Iron Cake? How does it differ? Is it thinner? Is it thicker? How does the aftertaste vary? Even if I haven't necessarily had the Iron Cake that same day, comparing it mentally versus a tea that you know very well. So establishing that benchmark, getting a bunch of reps on it, I think that's very important. So when I sort of kick off these reports or drink throughs, what I'll do is I'll start with the benchmark and I'll try to finish with the benchmark as well, as a way to just kind of ground myself towards these certain standards. And that way, you know, when you're trying to evaluate something more in a vacuum, I think that's when you can get into a lot of trouble. But when you have a tea that is stylistically very similar to these other teas, it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to ground it. So a couple good benchmarks. I think factory teas are the easiest place to get benchmarks. So it's something like a 2005 Shagwan Iron Cake 8653. I think that's a great benchmark for Shagwan. The tools present themselves a little differently. So something like a Jaji, where you like the storage, you like the profile, I think that could be a very valuable benchmark as well. Perhaps a benchmark for more traditionally stored tea too. And for Dai, I think the 7542, 8582. There's a lot of value in keeping things fairly simple. I think when it comes to more boutique tea and these teas that tend to be rare or smaller runs, I think it's trickier. I do have my own Iwu benchmarks, but unfortunately a lot of them are not available, or so it's kind of a little bit less relevant information for me to share when it comes to kind of Iwu area teas, just because these aren't like these huge runs of teas that anyone can go out and buy. So benchmark teas are basically teas you've had many times that are somewhat representative or fairly representative of the kind of tea category that you're looking for. So advice to beginners is like, yeah, get some reps from these things that are very established. A lot of people have written about them. Learn from it, drink it a bunch, and that way you will have a much easier time to evaluate it. This is also useful when it comes to evaluating something like teaware. So if you get like a new pot or whatever, you don't want to evaluate it against a tea that you've never had before. So new pot, new blind sample or whatever, that's a bad way to do it. You'd want to try it with a tea that you know quite well. So having a benchmark tea, something that you really know very well. One benchmark tea, or one tea that has always driven me a little crazy when I see people try it, and it's not necessarily people's fault about this, is the Shagwan Love Forever Paper Tong, a tea that I am also fond of. I do like it, and I do think it's, somewhat similar caliber to something like the 2005 Shagwan Iron Cake 8653. But I think it's an absolutely terrible benchmark for Shagwan. First of all, it's aged Malcha, so the material is supposedly from 2003. It's also a Fei-type production, which is not regular Shagwan, and its profile is really not like very many Shagwans at all. So in the end, when I see someone drink the Love Forever Paper Tong and be like, oh, yeah, it's just typical Shagwan, whether it's positive or negative, I just kind of can't help but shake my head just a little bit, just because it is not a typical Shagwan, and it's actually a very bad benchmark. If someone came to me and told me, hey, I want to learn about Shagwan tea, I would not say go ahead and try the Love Forever Paper Tong. Try a bunch of other teas and then try the Love Forever Paper Tong, which might actually be closer to kind of a Munghai area style tea than a Shagwan. Not that I would say it's a good bench for dye either. So make sure you are getting the right sorts of benchmarks, especially when it comes to Shagwan. You could benchmark yourself against the very wrong thing, so like a non-jiao tool or something that's much softer than your kind of stereotypical Shagwan. So make sure it's something that is actually representative too. Okay, so that just about concludes my thoughts on benchmark teas. Let me know how you like this episode. Go check out that article on tdb.org. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 10,000 this year, and I'll see y'all next time. Cheers.